Have you ever heard about the Russian sleep experiment? It's one of the darkest things I've ever come across. Back in the late 1940s, a group of Soviet researchers tried this horrifying experiment. They took 5 political prisoners, people labeled as enemies of the state during World War II, and locked them in a sealed chamber. The goal was simple but twisted. See what happens if humans are kept awake for 30 days straight using a gas stimulant. The room was designed for total observation. There were microphones everywhere, and thick glass portholes, about 5 inches thick, that let the researchers see in. The subjects had books, cots without bedding, running water, a toilet, and enough dried food to last them for over a month. The researchers even monitored the oxygen carefully, because the gas could become toxic at high levels. At first, everything seemed normal. For about 5 days, they talked to each other calm and cooperative, probably motivated by the false promise that they'd be freed if they completed the test. But after the 4th day, their conversations started getting darker. Trauma, paranoia, and guilt. By the 5th day, they stopped speaking to each other and started to whisper into the microphones, or muttering to the mirrored glass. They even began trying to betray each other, as if they could earn the researchers' trust that way. Then, on the 9th day, one of them just snapped. He started screaming, running the length of the chamber for 3 hours straight until his voice just gave out. The others didn't even react. They just kept whispering until a second man began screaming too. Then something truly bizarre happened. The remaining 3 just tore apart books, smeared the pages with their own feces, and calmly plastered them over the glass so no one could see inside. After that, the chamber went completely silent. No screaming, no whispering, nothing. The microphone showed silence for days. The researchers thought maybe they were all dead, but the oxygen levels told a different story. They were still breathing as much oxygen as 5 people doing heavy exercise. On the 14th day, the researchers finally tried using the intercom. They announced they would open the chamber and that the subjects should lie on the floor or be shot, and that compliance meant freedom for one of them. A single calm voice replied, "We no longer want to be freed." That sent chills down their spines. Still, they opened the chamber on the 15th day. The moment fresh air hit the room, the microphones lit up with frantic voices, pleading, begging to turn the gas back on. When the soldiers finally went in, they were met with screams from the subjects and from the soldiers who saw them. 4 were still alive, but what they saw wasn't really human anymore. No food had been touched since day 5. The 5th subject was dead, and the chunks of his flesh had been stuffed down the drain, clogging it and leaving bloody water pooled on the floor. The survivors had torn off their own skin and muscles with their bare hands, not teeth. Their fingers were shredded down to exposed bone. Their hearts, lungs, and diaphragms were still working, and their digestive tracts were moving, digesting their own flesh. They begged to be left in the chamber, begged for the gas again, terrified of falling asleep. Getting them out was chaos. They fought like animals. One soldier had his throat torn out, several more were injured, and some later took their own lives after what they saw. One subject even survived long enough to keep fighting after completely bleeding out, his heart still beating for 2 minutes in open air. The 3 who survived were taken to a medical facility strapped down. The most injured resisted every sedative they tried. He fought until they brought out anesthetic gas, and he tore nearly through a 4-inch leather strap, even with a soldier pinning him down. It took only slightly more gas than normal to put him under, and the moment his eyes shut, his heart stopped. His autopsy showed triple the normal oxygen in his blood, torn muscles, and 9 broken bones from the sheer force of his own struggles. The second survivor was the first one who had screamed days before. His vocal cords were ruined. When they tried to give him anesthetic, he violently shook his head, no. When someone suggested performing surgery without it, he nodded. He stayed awake through a 6-hour procedure where they placed his organs back inside and tried to cover them with what was left of his skin. The surgeon kept saying it shouldn't be possible for him to be alive. At one point, a nurse swore he smiled at her. Afterwards, they gave him a pen and pad to write down what he was trying to say. The other 2, including the last man, had their surgeries done without anesthetic as well. though they had to be paralyzed just to keep them still. They laughed during the procedures. The moment the paralytic wore off, they tried to escape, and as soon as they could speak, they begged for the gas. When the researchers asked why they had done this to themselves, why they wanted the gas, they got one answer: I must remain awake. So under the pressure from the military, the commanding officer ordered that the three be put back into the chamber with the gas. The researchers argued, but he overruled them. They strapped the survivors down, wired them to EEG monitors, and padded their restraints. The moment they learned they were going back on the gas, they stopped fighting. It was clear they were trying to desperately stay awake. One hummed constantly. The mute one strained his legs against the straps, first left, then right, like he needed something to focus on. The last one held his head off the pillow and blinked rapidly. Then something strange happened. His brainwaves were normal, then suddenly flatlined as if he was dying, then returned to normal. This kept happening, and while the researchers watched people scroll out of the EEG machine, only one nurse noticed his eyes close. His head hit the pillow, his brainwave shifted instantly to deep sleep, and then flatlined for good. His heart stopped. The one who could still speak started screaming to be seated in immediately. His EEG showed the same pattern of flatlines. The commander ordered the chamber sealed with both subjects and 3 researchers inside. But one of the researchers snapped. He pulled out his gun, shot the commander between the eyes, then shot the mute subject dead. Then he turned the gun on the last surviving subject, who was strapped down and staring at him. I won't be locked in here with these things, the man shouted. The subject smiled. Have you forgotten so easily, he said. We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you, begging to be free in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to that nocturnal heaven where we cannot tread. The researcher shot him in the heart. The EEG flatlined. The subject's last word, barely a whisper, were, so nearly free.